Good morning, everybody. Here we are in Whalley, in Lancashire, in the Ribble Valley, the heart of the Ribble Valley. And you're going to join me on a walk today. The first of 3 films we're making, following a route called the Two Toms Trail. And Whalley, famous for its abbey, it's also famous for Tom Stephenson, who was the man who created the Pennine Way, who came up with the idea of the Pennine Way, and he lived in Whalley. And we're going to follow the first section of the route known as the Two Toms Trail, which celebrates Tom Stephenson and Tom Leonard, T.A. Leonard, who was also a countryside campaigner like Tom Stephenson. And so first of all, we're starting Whalley. Good transport links in Whalley. We've got the train station and the bus station. So here we are in the little gardens of the main street in Whalley, and we're going to go up onto Pendle Hill. It's very misty at the moment. It's the last day of February, March tomorrow. So it's a misty start, but I think when we get up onto Pendle Hill, we're going to get some sunshine, and we're going to walk about 8 or 9 miles today to Newchurch-in-Pendle. So we just come off the main street in Whalley just to walk along Princess Street, not part of the Two Toms Trail, but this was where Tom Stephenson lived growing up. He was actually born in Chorley, and they moved to Whalley as a young lad, and he lived in a terraced house just off the main street in Whalley. And when he was 13, he went to work at the Barrow Print Works. So this is the former Whalley Village Police Station, and it was to here that Tom Stephenson was brought during the First World War, when he was arrested, and he was charged with ignoring his call up as a conscription to fight in the First World War, because Tom Stephenson was a pacifist, and he ended up going to Wormwood Scrubs and Northallerton Jail, and he spent the end of the Great War in prison. Okay, so we've climbed out of Whalley now, up by the side of Springwood, and we're heading our way up to the Nick of Pendle. This view, looking back towards Whalley, should have been a spectacular view of the Ribble Valley and the railway arches, looking all the way to the coast. Still not climbed out of the mist yet, so you can't see anything of the Ribble Valley. But Tom Stephenson, at the age of 13, he went to work in the print works at Barrow, where there's the big retail park now and the McDonald's, and just on the A59, and that was a big print works. And Tom Stephenson was employed as a labourer at the age of 13. This is in 1906, and that could have been his career in the mills. After his first week at work, he decided to climb onto Pendle Hill, and that was his first time on Pendle Hill. So he would have likely have come up similar way to which we've come up, and got on the old bridle way leading to the Nick of Pendle, which we're going to go now. And when he got onto Pendle Hill, that was really a revelatory moment for Tom Stephenson, a bit like Alfred Wainwright going on to Orist Head. So we're going to walk onto Pendle Hill. Hopefully we will get a view at some point, and hopefully we'll see what Tom Stephenson saw in 1906 when he was aged just 13. Okay, we've just stopped at the one of the beautifully ornate Peak of Northern Footpath Society signposts. There's lots of these around Pendle Hill, Pennines, down to the Peak District. The Peak of Northern Footpaths Preservation Society was formed in 1894, one of the oldest footpath preservation societies in the world. and it was actually formed in Manchester in the old YMCA building on Peter Street. And if you go there now, you can see a red plaque on the wall outside saying this was where the Pecan Northern Footpath Society was formed. So it's great that they still look after these signposts and put them on rights of way all the way through the Pecan Pennines. If you just pan round, we're actually on what John Dixon, the great John Dixon, Lancashire author, historian, he identified this as a prehistoric highway across Europe. So you would have had goods coming from Europe, tin coming from Ireland, and very old ancient highway, now a public bridleway, takes you all the way up onto Pendle Hill. So we've arrived on the spur of Pendle Hill, known as Apronful Hill. You can see that the mist is clearing very slowly, but it's not enough to get a view northwards. So in 1906, when he first climbed up here after work, aged 13, Tom Stephenson was able to look from the spur of this hill, looking northwards, and he would have had the view towards Ingleborough, Pennygent, Bowland, looking northwards, and he actually wrote about it and said that that was a sort of transformative view, and it began his lifelong love of rambling and his love of the great outdoors, and also sowed the seeds of this idea of the Pennine Way, this long green trail going northwards along the backbone of England, which he was to write up in a newspaper article in the Daily Herald in 1935. Wanted a long green trail. So we could say that the seeds of that idea really began with his first visit to Pendle Hill in Lancashire, and that began his, as I say, began his sort of love of the great outdoors. And we're now actually, the Two Toms Trail doesn't go on to the summit of Pendle Hill, it heads off towards Spence Moor. We're going over towards the Clarion House, and then to Colne and the associations with Tom Leonard. And not forgetting that Tom Leonard, who was a congregational church pastor in Colne, used to bring his church congregation, the Rambling Club, out onto Pendle Hill for rambles before he went further afield and went up to the Lake District. So you can hear the skylark singing now. So the weather is improving slightly. So this book, Forbidden Land, came out in 1989, 2 years after Tom Stephenson died. So it was partly his memoir and partly about the struggle for access to mountains and moorlands. In the book, it talks about Pendle Hill having a special place in Tom's memories, and it gives an account of Tom Stephenson walking up Pendle Hill for the first time. And in 1912, he had it published in a little cooperative society journal called the Whalley Wheat Sheaf. And just read a little section of what he could see. He said, some 30 miles northwards rise Ingleborough and Pennygent, and to the east of them the hills above Malham meet the horizon. Across the valley we have Grindleton Fells, and behind them the high moorlands stretching to Clapham and Lancaster. Just peeping over Brusham Fells are the crests of the hills forming the trough of Bowland. More to the left the hills above Chipping bound the view. Still further to the left is the blunt termination of Longridge Fell with its thickly wooded summit. Due south stands Whalley Nab. These hills are but the frame, though, that surrounds a most exquisite picture. With undepictable irregularity, the meadows and woodlands stretch from one hill to another, whilst here and there are dotted tiny villages. Down in the bottom of the valley, the Ribble meanders gracefully through verdant meadows and golden woods by rocky cliffs and grassy knolls as it makes its way to the sea, just discernible like a silver ribbon behind the tops of proud Preston's tallest chimneys. So we've come off Spence Moor and we're walking by the side of the wood, by the side of Ogden Reservoirs, and if you look over that way you might be able to see the Pennines, the main Pennines, and the town of Nelson and Burnley, the industrial towns of the Calder Valley, which just shows you that this beautiful countryside around Pendle Hill is never far away from the mill towns, and that's what made this countryside so popular in the 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, when people wanted to escape from the mill towns from work on the Sundays and head off into the hills for a bit of recreation, fresh air, and improving themselves. So we're just about a mile or so from Newchurch now, so we're going to head on down the hill. So here we are, we've arrived at the end of the walk, Newchurch-in-Pendle. Here is the church. Free dog biscuits in the church for Susie. She's just done 8 miles. So we've walked the first 8 miles of the Two Toms Trail from Whalley to Newchurch-in-Pendle. So we started off in mist in Whalley and on Pendle Hill, and we've ended up in beautiful sunshine here on this side of Pendle Hill. So the next stage will be from Newchurch to Colne, past the Clarion House. So join me for stage 2 of the Two Toms Trail, coming soon. We'll see you there.